who's ready for a round two of my mum's balcony plants whilst I'm actually just about to wrap up my holiday in Greece. So stick around with me and let me give you a bit of an update since the last video that I did. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion, even when on holiday. As you might be able to see behind me, I get this passion from my family. These are my mother's balcony plants. So as I said, let's have a look at how things are growing. I did another video and I'll link it at the top of what the plants were like the last time I was here, and I think that might have been around winter time, I think, potentially. Lighting is going to be an interesting one. I'll see if I can make adjustments in editing, but what you might be able to notice on the very side here is, I think they're called awnings, that you get in balconies in Greece, usually to block out some of the light, to create a bit of a privacy. It's less visible from what you can see um, out of the balcony. I know that might be weird for a few people, but otherwise it's very busy and everybody's kind of in your face. So this is a way to create some kind of enclosed, kind of indoor-outdoor space, really. All the Greeks that are out there, you know what I mean by this. But yes, as I was saying, Mum's growth in the plants is a bit more substantial now. Obviously, this is the tail end of the summer. This is technically the first, I think it's the first. I've lost all track of days. Anybody else get that when they're on holiday? We're just like, what day is it? What week is it? I don't know. Beginning part of September anyway, beginning towards middle part of September. And this is kind of what a lot of the kind of northern territories of Europe would consider probably coming towards the tail end of the growing season. Greece, realistically, will probably have another month or two of growing season out on the balconies as well. That should tell you something. So you might be able to see right here, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to lift it up to bring it up and show you. I'm trying to not destroy my mum's plants. Oh no, it's all right. And I'm obviously going to cut some of myself up, but can you see the sheer size of this crown of thorns? And it is fully in bloom, as most crown of thorns tend to be around this time of the year, but actually in Greece, it's pretty kind of year-round, really. So I've kind of propped up the camera on the side there. As I said, I'll try to fix any lighting issues that I might have, also possibly any audio issues, but hopefully the audio might be okay. I think I've got better microphones this time around versus the last time. What you might be able to see here, and I'm not going to try lifting this up at all, is this is the ivy. Remember in the previous video I was showing that she was just trying to kind of pot up some ivy, and a shock to nobody that ivy is growing like a weed. It is doing exceptionally well in this specific pot. There is my mother's massive Monstera deliciosa that is happening right here. I'll see if I can get some B-rolls for some of these and possibly add them in throughout the video, but getting loads of the splits that are happening in the leaves, some of the secondary fenestrations that are happening around the midrib. But this is the one, remember I showed you on the previous video that my mother had a very, very large Monstera deliciosa in Cyprus, and this was a cutting that she brought over, and it's now pretty much turning into its own plant. On the corner here, and this I might be able to lift up. Oh, that would be a hard pass because the plant is very small, but the pot is very large. And I'll say it again, as I said it on the previous video, people here have been growing things the way that they've been growing them for years. I know we're always sitting there going, you need to go for smaller pots. And if you put it in too big of a pot, it will definitely cause root rot. Be cognizant of your environment and be cognizant of your own growing conditions, because here, when the average temperature during the day, during the growing season, is between 30 to 32, 35 degrees Celsius, all the way potentially up to 42 degrees Celsius, that pot with more soil in it even if it's got a relatively small plant, means that the roots will stay hydrated for a bit longer, and what my mother won't have to do is water it over and over and over again. So that here, and thank you so much to everybody on the previous video who actually reached out and gave me an idea of what that plant was, because this is the plant that my grandmother was growing, and my mother took cuttings of it and she's growing that in Cyprus, and she bought some of the cuttings here, and I think it's the butcher's brush, and I'll see if I can find the scientific name and add it at the top. And she's super, super happy that that is doing so, so well for her, and she's now got a backup, because she was a bit worried what happens if that massive plant in Cyprus dies off, and she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. And what you might be able to see, and again, as I said, hopefully I'll add some B-roll. So remember when I was showing you, and actually let me come a bit closer. Remember when I was telling you about my dad's cyclamens that he had in the trough planters on the side? Guess what has happened now that it's summer? They are no longer around. However, I did hear, I think the cyclamens kind of grow out of bulbs. I might be wrong. Correct me if you know that I'm talking a rubbish. But those are no longer here, so the bulbs might be in there. I think I told my dad to double check in case he was going to put other plants in, that there isn't bulbs that are waiting to come back to life with some of the cyclamens. So he is aware of that. The other thing that is here, oops, there's that for some B-roll for you there whilst I destroy my mother's pots. This is another small cutting of the, what's it called? Crown of Thorns, but very, very bushy and leafy, which I can never get back home. Yeah. Whilst I try not to like bend my fingers backwards. The other thing that is here is my mother's Sansevieria. And I don't know how many other people, I don't know if I discussed about that in my previous video. I think that's some Sansevieria trifasciata, and I know they've been reclassified as Dracaenas at the moment, so Dracaena trifasciata, I think, but it's the one with the variegated side sections. If it isn't, I'll put it up there, because I don't have kind of honest admission, I don't have that many Sansevieria, so that is Sansevieria I do not own in the UK. I am thinking about getting one, but we'll see basically. But that one is doing exceptionally well. My question on that one is, and I don't know how many other countries around the world have this, we, if I'm not mistaken, in Greece call that the mother-in-law's tongue, because it's supposed to be like everybody's a bit cautious of their mother-in-law in this country, and I think it's called the mother-in-law's tongue, is because the leaf blades on either side are a bit sharp, so what your mother-in-law might say about you might be a bit harsh potentially at times. So that is known, if I'm not mistaken, as the mother-in-law's tongue here. The next thing next to it is the, if I'm not mistaken, hibiscus, which is looking a bit limp at the moment, I am not going to lie. But I think with this one, having looked at it, yeah, that's quite impressive. That's a very established hibiscus, and again, difficult for me to move. Hopefully, as I said, I'll be adding B-rolls. But that specific hibiscus, the leaves are very kind of floppy at the moment. The interesting thing is when my parents aren't here, now that I was here, I could have done it for them, but I only came back to the house in Athens probably like yesterday, and they'd already pre-planned. They've got somebody who comes in and waters the plants for them once or twice a week in the summer when they're not here, and they weren't here at the moment. So the person had come and watered that plant and that entire pot. Remember we were talking about the sizes of the pots, bone dry already. So that hibiscus is particularly thirsty. Also, I have brought down the awnings for this video alone. These were all up, so it means that these plants are getting blasted with a whole bunch of light during the day. If I'm not mistaken, south is kind of that direction, so they are getting quite substantial light. It's not quite direct light because that awning that you're seeing, that kind of sheet at the back here, let me show you. This one here, that is permanently down, because otherwise this is quite blinding in here. So it is one of those things that is always there and is protecting these plants. And as you can see from last time, The the Dracaenas are doing absolutely ridiculously well here. You can still see on the side there is the yucca that's pulling out to the side there. There's another big Dracaena in the middle. They're all doing exceptionally well, and another yucca on this side. Now, the yuccas specifically, I will try and see if I can add a picture here, because there are some yuccas down underneath the flat, so kind of the entryway of the building, and they are currently in bloom. And if anybody hasn't seen what a yucca bloom is, I think this might be the first time I've seen it. It's quite cool. It's kind of like, at least the one that I can see there, it's like large kind of bluebell type flowers in a row, but they're not blue, they're white-ish. I might be talking rubbish, but I hopefully have a picture here, because I did take a picture earlier on to show you. And it is kind of really, really, really quite cool. The other thing that is doing really well here, and this is something that we talked about last time, please ignore the beeping over the cars, because the Greeks are very angry when they're driving generally, is the two ficus. Oh, why am I trying? Benjamina, I think. So it's the ficus where you get all the tiny little leaves. I have always wanted to grow these in the UK, and I know some people grow them particularly well. My kind of curiosity with these ones is, and hopefully some of you might be able to tell me about this. I know that those specific ficuses can be a bit temperamental and drop a lot of the leaves when you first move them. So the question that I have for all of you is, if you have that type of ficus, when you bought it and bought it into your house, did it pretty much lose like most of its leaves, and then you just had to look at something that looked a bit kind of twiggy for a good few weeks or months before it got all of its foliage back, but then after that you didn't really have a problem? Let me know. I'm really curious, because if that is the only thing that might happen, I might give it a try, because it's kind of a good plant to have, and it gives that tree vibe without it being too problematic. My mother's always been able to grow this. Watch me fail miserably, because I am not good with ficuses. I pretty much have said this, and I will say this again. The only ficus that I can grow successfully is the ficus elastica. So the rubber tree ficus. Those ones I can grow really, really well. Me and most of the rest of the world. But some of the other ficuses, I am not as good as, I'm not going to lie. Now let me rotate you around to the actual other side, where there is one more plant to show you. And actually, instead of doing B-roll and inserting it into different footages, I might kind of pick you up and kind of talk you around some of the plants, so that it's all kind of within one cohesive bit. So you might be able to see now the See, again, I thought this was a colocasia last time, but looking at how the leaves are growing, I would actually say this is an alocasia. And I can tell you how many growth points there are now, because remember last video, this was really getting blown out. Part of the reason why I drew down the awnings is so that we could it's going to be a bit darker at times. I'm still getting blown out when the light moves around, but just so you get a better view, this is nowhere near as blown out. It's doing really well. Remember last time how cold it was, and it was still in leaf. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 growth points in that one specific plant. So it is doing really, really well. But as I said, let me pick you up and actually show you up close as I walk you around, so you can see some of the plants. So let's have a look at some of these plants in situ. So as I was talking earlier on, this is the actual crown of thorns, and I can never remember, something millii, and again I'll put the Latin name at the top, but you can see how cool those kind of stems with the thorns are, and then also the actual blooms themselves. This is very, very cool, and it's a very happy one as well, because as I said, this has been growing for years. And some people get really like eked out by messy plants. This can be considered a bit of a messy plant. I just think it's really, really cool. I think maybe because this is very reminiscent of my childhood. This is kind of reminiscent of kind of more arid environments. Although I know this doesn't need to be just completely like Sahara Desert to be happy, but this is one that I quite enjoy growing. And actually, if you see the other side of it here, so this is a cutting that she planted in. And the fact that I hate the fact that my mother can actually just pop this into the ground and it will bush out with all of this green, luscious foliage. and root, obviously, and be happy and do what it needs to do. And I tried taking some cuttings from her plant here, the one that's on the side there, and I did kiss. None of mine actually rooted. And yeah, so it's it's a painful story, but this is the Sansevieria that I was talking about before. You can see what I mean now. These are the ones with the like kind of yellow variegated, I would imagine, sections. Again, I know these are technically called Dracaenas now, but this has been growing for years, donkey's years, and that's what I mean about the. I think most people have seen a Sansevieria by now, but that really kind of sharp edge is why they call this a mother-in-law's tongue. Now, this is the ficus, not the ficus. This is the ivy that I was talking about before. Remember that this is a couple of sticks in, and it's kind of sitting on top of the table. This wouldn't normally stay here. I don't think my mother would keep that there permanently, but it's doing relatively well. I don't know, is anybody really surprised that some ivy was shoved into a pot and it took like a wildfire? I don't know, but it's doing quite well, as you can obviously see there. Now, let me show you what I meant about those planters. Remember the planters that I was talking about before, about the cyclamens? Ta-da! There's not very much going on. However, and this is a thing I found quite interesting. I was talking about this with a friend of mine, and basically what she was kind of asking, she was growing olive trees, and she was sitting there going, oh, I don't know anything about plants. Obviously, you're really into your plants. What do I need to be growing my olive trees in for them to be happy? And she's living in the UK, but we spent all of our summers, her parents are like half Greek, I think. We spent all of our summers in Greece and Cyprus. So I just kind of went and I'm just like, not to be patronizing. I mean, we're practically related. She's practically like a sister to me. I'm just like, what do you mean what you're growing it in? Were you not paying attention when we were growing up, like what the soil was around with most of these plants? Because this is what the soil is like here anyway, especially when you're looking at Greeks talking about olive trees. We should know what to grow olive trees in, really. But that's me just being a bit pedantic there. But let me show you what I mean by that. But you can kind of see here what my dad was kind of using as a bit of a soil mix. And this isn't anything that he was doing specifically, but it kind of comes innately to them. So you can see it is a relatively dusty. I think this might just be regular kind of compost, but it's massively amended with just sand and rocks. Sand and rocks, and that's good. It keeps it light enough. And you can see here there's kind of they're getting ready to plant some more stuff in. And as I was saying, I don't know whether or not he's going to sit there and look for the bulbs, but I did tell him, look, you really should be searching for that to see what's going on. Now, remember when I was talking about the hibiscus before, when I was talking about limp leaves? Ooh, and look at that. Mama Memo is struggling by the same things that I am struggling with. Apologies for the dirty nails, but I've just stuck my hands into some soil. Did anybody notice the mealybug that I was talking about before there? And look, look, look. It's like a family reunion. Her mealybugs can play with my mealybugs, and this won't focus. Let me show you. There we go. Sorry for the close-up and the triggering of anybody that hates mealybugs, but yes. But this one is looking really floppy, and this is the one that I was talking about before. So look at the soil there. That to me looks quite wet. Dusty dry. So this was watered yesterday, so it might be that maybe there's still some water in the root mass down below and it will eventually perk up. But at the moment, this is looking like it's kind of parched for water, and it might have been because it hasn't been watered for at least a week. When I was talking about the yuccas before, so that's the one that was pointing out of the balconies we were talking about before. And actually, I don't know whether or not if I can zoom you in. Let me see if I can zoom you in. Or maybe. Can you see the bloom? Look at the yucca bloom. So that's the one I was talking about, and hopefully I've got a picture that I've added somewhere earlier on. But yeah, the Dracaenas, as I was mentioning earlier, they're doing really, really well. You can see that it's not just Memo that does the janky support stick. My mother also does janky support twine. And then here's another yucca. You can see what I mean about that kind of awning sheet on the side, because that is pretty much where the kind of south facing light is coming from. So there is a balcony, but there's another building behind this one. So it does block some of it, but you can see already how bright it is. And this, to give you an idea, I am now 6 in the afternoon. So it is still quite bright. And then, as I was talking about before, it's these ficuses here. So I think it's the Ficus benjamina, if I'm not mistaken. But I would really, really like to potentially get one of these. So we'll see. Let me know your experiences down below. And I know it's probably one of the most common ficuses generally, but I would like to see about trying with that one. And then obviously it wouldn't be one of my mother's plants if it didn't have a golden pothos somewhere. So yes, golden pothos. And let me turn you around so I can show you the last few plants, just so you can kind of give you an idea of size. That is the size of her Monstera deliciosa leaf. Again, remember, this started off as an unfenestrated cutting, I think, that she brought over from Cyprus, and this is less than a year old. So this is what happens with ideal conditions. Woe for the rest of us that are growing somewhere where it's not ideal. But yes, this is doing quite well. And I think, I don't even know that, is that the largest leaf? Yes, there is actually, that is the most recent leaf there that's getting a bit less light, but it's doing really, really well. And then down here, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the butcher's brush plant. So also doing a very, very well. Now, I'll take you with me so you can have a look at the colocasia. Let me see if I can kind of grab you. Apologies if it's a bit shaky. I do not have a gimbal and it's just me holding up my camera, which is quite heavy. But yes, there is the alocasia, I think. Not a colocasia, based on the direction of the leaves. And I know there's been a lot of debate on this one, on whether or not that's the only way that you can tell an alocasia and a colocasia between them, but let me show you what it looks like down at the roots, and then I'll put you back down again and we can close up. But you can see there what I mean about all the different growths that is happening there, and all of those lovely kind of tubers that are coming out of the soil. But you can see what is the tubers that are growing down below is what eventually turns into the stems. But yeah, this is getting blasted by light. I'm trying to see if there's any bugs on any of these leaves. None that I can see. It looks like there was some speckling, but I don't think there's any bugs on it currently. So yes, let me take you guys back. Okay, and that is kind of all of my mother's balcony plants. They're doing okay. They're doing okay, and she's really, really happy with how they've been growing over the summer. She doesn't fuss about these plants anywhere near as I might fuss for my own plants. And I'm, by this point, I would imagine, relatively less unfair by my standards, because I'm still an anxious person. But hers are doing really, really well. And I think this is the important thing that we all sometimes forget. And it's nice to remember. And it's, I think, seeing parents or family kind of people's plants that are doing well, sometimes it doesn't need that much thought. Sometimes just grow it, and if it grows, keep growing it, and if it doesn't grow, try something else. I know it sounds really simplistic, but there's no need to overcomplicate it. Yes, we all want the plants that we really, really desperately would like to grow in our house and our collections, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but maybe it's just a sign of try one more time, and if it doesn't work, move on to something else, try something different. But yes, it's my 2 cents on that situation. But hopefully you've enjoyed. I am so glad to be back tomorrow. Actually, I'm flying back tomorrow and be filming back in with my plants. I am curious to see how they've done. I think the person that has been caring for Duke, the chickens, the lizards, the plants, the house, whilst I've been away, hasn't, I think she might have been a bit apprehensive when first starting off, because it's a lot to undertake, especially if you've not done it before at my scale. But I think they've enjoyed their time doing that. I do have a special couple of plants that I've been growing for that individual for a while now in the propagation bin, which I have not shared with them just yet, but I will be giving them that. I'll probably give you a bit more of an update after I've given the gift, just in case that individual watches this video. If you do, thank you so much for everything you have done this holiday. It has meant the world to me, because I've not been able to take a holiday like this without worrying about my plants for probably 5 years now. So it means an awful lot just for me to be able to decompress. But yes, that is everything. And hopefully the next video will be back into the usual space and you'll get to see my usual plants behind me. Thanks for everybody for being so understanding for the only thing of me being able to do during the holiday on some of the videos that have come out, because you saw a few videos that came out was kind of like and thumbs up just so you know that I have seen your comment and you are heard. I will see if I can respond to everything back, but I think by the time I'm back, I'm going to have about 4 or 5 videos worth of comments to go through. So can't make any promises. I will try. To answer the question that a lot of people were having on some of the other videos, because I did film a lot of videos wearing the same kind of skull and plant top, and I think people were quite curious with that one. I will find out and let you know, because that was a gift from somebody for my 40th birthday, so I don't actually know where they got it from, but I will ask and let you guys know in one of the next videos. But yes, hopefully I shall see you soon. Hopefully you've enjoyed, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.